The National Security Council with President Buhari presides over National Security Council meeting with Defense Headquarters to set up an investigative committee to unravel the circumstances surrounding the alleged Taraba killings. The Federal High Court in Abuja grants the Directorate of State Services 45 days for the detention of the leader of the Revolution Now group, Omoyole Sowore, pending the completion of investigation for trial. Presidency says Nigeria's economy is growing significantly, contrary to claims by the opposition alleging that the economy is in danger. And now the news in details. The National Security Council has ordered the Defense Headquarters to set up an investigative committee towards unraveling the circumstances surrounding the alleged killing of 3 police officers and 1 civilian by soldiers in Taraba State. The council gave the directive after an extraordinary meeting on the nation's security situation presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports.
The meeting summoned by President Muhammadu Buhari lasted several hours behind closed doors. In attendance were the service chiefs led by the Chief of Defense Staff, the Chief of Defense Intelligence, and a representative of the Inspector General of Police. Others were the National Security Advisor, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Defense, as well as Directors General, Department of State Services, and the National Intelligence Agency. The council, which reviewed the current strategy of managing internal security operations across Nigeria, is convinced that substantial progress has been made in all areas of conflict, as explained by the Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar.
We also want to assure Nigerians that the armed forces of Nigeria and security agencies, other security agencies, will continue to work to ensure the security of Nigerians and to also ensure that no individual or group of individuals undermines the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Nigeria.
Members of the National Security Council were, however, worried over the reported incident in Taraba State, which they described as unfortunate, intolerable, and counterproductive. A notorious kidnap kingpin was said to have been arrested by the police, handcuffed, and been conveyed to the police command headquarters in Jalingo when they were allegedly attacked by soldiers who killed 3 policemen, 1 civilian, and got the suspect freed.
A committee will be set up by Defense Headquarters to critically investigate the circumstances that led to the unfortunate incidents in Ibi.
No time frame was given for the completion of the assignment, but the council is assuring the public that appropriate action will be taken on the matter. The National Security Council is also encouraging the armed forces and other security agencies to leverage on technology towards effectively containing the challenges of security confronting the country.
We are looking at other areas of technology that are not currently in use, to ensure that we put together all that is required to ensure security of Nigeria and Nigerians.
President Muhammadu Buhari had recently, in a meeting with the Southwest Obas, promised to do whatever it takes within the limits of resources to set Nigeria on the path of peace and prosperity. From the State House, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
Justice Taiwo Abayomi Taiwo of the Federal High Court in Abuja has granted the Directorate of State Services, DSS, 45 days for the detention of leader of the Revolution Now group, Omoyole Sowore, pending the completion of investigation for trial. Justice Taiwo gave the ruling after studying the ex parte application and video evidences of the DSS. Judiciary correspondent Femi Okeo reports that Sowore was not brought to the court since it was not yet time for arraignment.
Although Omoyole Sowore is yet to be formally charged before the court, the application for his detention was brought by the DSS under the Terrorism Prevention Act, giving little room for the exercise of personal liberty, as Section 27, subsection 1 of the Terrorism Act subsumes personal liberty under national security. Even with the application being ex parte, Justice Taiwo did some balancing act by taking judicial notice of laws and court judgments which could stand for the respondent. But in the words of the court, personal liberty must be in accordance to the law. Justice Taiwo also said that in the face of the video exhibits attached to the application by the DSS and the provisions of Section 27, subsection 1 of the Terrorism Prevention Act, he was inclined to grant the application, at least to an extent. The video exhibits are clips of Omoyele Sowore along with Nnamdi Kanu of the proscribed IPOB, and the second being a collaboration with the proscribed Islamic Movement of Nigeria, all of which the DSS told the court were processes to bring down the government. The court therefore granted the DSS 45 days to detain Sowore in order to complete investigation and report back to the court on the 24th of September. In Abuja, Femi Okeowo, NTA News.
Still with security matters, the Nigerian police force is deploying a specially trained and strategically equipped squad to check all forms of criminality in the southwest geopolitical zone. Deputy Inspector General of Police in charge of operations, Abdul Majid Ali, who disclosed this in Ado-Ekiti, explained that the move is to fortify security in the area. Kola Adeboboye has the report.
Identifying the prevalence of criminal engagements by some men of the underworld, which have been hindering the needed growth in the land, necessitated the tour of the State Command by the Deputy Inspector General of Police in charge of operations, Abdul Majid Ali, on the orders of Inspector General of Police, to share information with officers and men of the force on how best to curb criminality, especially in the southwest region.
And so the same will apply in the southwest. We're sending a strong team here that will work with all the commissioners of police and ensure that there's security and there's peace. People sleep with their two eyes closed and move freely.
The host commissioner of police, Amba Asugo, and the AIG Zone 11 Oshogbo, who accompanied the DIG, corroborated efforts of the police management in play a supportive role being the eyes of the public to ensure that crime is reduced to the barest minimum in the country. In Ado-Ekiti, Kola Adeboboye, NTA News.
Stakeholders have called for improved policies, monitoring and national legal and regulatory framework for effective operations of private security companies in the country. This was the submission at the launching of Baseline Study Report on Private Security Governance in Nigeria. Hamman Jabani reports.
The Private Guard Act of 1986 gave birth to the proliferation of private security organizations in the country. It came as a direct response to complement the services of public security agencies. According to the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, as of February 2019, there are about 1,110 licensed private security companies operating and about 740 unlicensed private security companies undergoing processing, creating 828,505 employment. To this end, there is urgent need to repeal and replace the Private Guard Act of 1986. So, it is in the light of this that the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, in collaboration with other stakeholders, initiated a research on private security governance in Nigeria in collaboration with Afilo Foundation.
This is coming at a time where I think we really need this, so that we can roll minds and forge a way ahead and see how we can improve security in Nigeria.
So don't have some necessary capacity and equipment required. So they have a challenge of funding to improve what they are doing.
The work is set to reform the operating system of private security companies in Nigeria, their training standards, professional development, code of conduct, ethics in line with human rights standards, as well as working condition, among others.
We are at that stage of our evolution where there's need for the building of proper legal and regulatory frameworks, in order to consolidate private security in Nigeria.
The finding is hope to revolutionize the operation of such private security organizations for optimal security of the country. Hamman Jabani, NTA News.
Now, away from security matters, the presidency says Nigeria's economy is growing significantly, contrary to claims by the opposition PDP alleging that the economy is in danger. In a statement, Senior Special Assistant to the President of Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, presented facts side by side to prove economic growth under the Buhari administration. The details.
Nigeria's economy came out from recession with the confidence investors have when President Buhari came with his economic revival mission in 2015. This, the presidency explained, made domestic and foreign direct investments flow steadily. For instance, the presidency noted growth of capital importation, which rises to 216%, equivalent to more than $7.14 billion this year. Records indicate that economic growth in the first and second quarter 2015 better than how it was in 2014. Similarly, United Africa Company of Nigeria's profit went higher with 61% from January to June this year, the fact which presidency referred to publications available on national dailies. It further stated that in the last 4 years, President Buhari made diplomatic shuttle to improve economic relations with the US, Europe and China, in addition to devoting 30% of the capital spending for infrastructure development. Evidence manifest in the statement added include projects being executed in rail, roads, aviation and power generation, which now has the capacity to generate 13,000 megawatts.
The National Identity Management Commission is refocusing its operations from card to national identification number and ensuring the mandatory usage of the number for all government services through an ecosystem which has commenced with the Nigerian Immigration Service and in Nigerian office in the diaspora. Director General of the Commission, Aliu Aziz, said this follows the implementation of recommendations made by Bureau of Public Service Reforms in Abuja. Adebola Brooks and Sunday reports.
Basically, you use two different numbers to serve your fatherland, state code and call-up number.
7 to 10 digits, and I was writing my NECO and WAEC at the same time, so having to cram both.
This series of registration processes to acquire identification number by Chris Okeke, a core member, and Olamide Oladile, the 300-level students of a university in Nigeria, are the narratives the National Identity Management Commission is changing through the introduction of a unique identification number immediately a child is born in the country. Director General Aliu Aziz said the Commission has set a 3-year target to register the entire population.
So what we are working on now is to make sure that there is something unique, and that is the name. The name will be given at birth and at any other time, so that we will be able to manage our resources, manage the people, and also organize ourselves.
Director General Bureau of Public Service Reform Ibrahim Dasuki Arabi, who commended the full implementation of the recommendations by the Commission, said the steps taken will eliminate duplication of duty and save costs.
Resources being used by other MDAs to generate data on Nigerians can be diverted and be used for something else. That is one good thing that they have done. Secondly, on their database, they have 36.1 million from about 700,000. I think that is a great achievement.
They also solicited the need for data of the Commission to be incorporated into the Integrated Payroll and Personnel Information System, IPPIS platform, to curb multiple accounts. Adebola Brooks Sunday, NTA News.
You're watching the news on NTA International. More news after the break. Don't go away.
Hear the call of change. Stand up, Nigeria. Change is here and it's going to stay. Change begins with you. Oh yeah, make we go. Go to so let the change begin from within. Look at you, Ogeruola. Change begins with you and me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
NTA International News. Africa as it is.
Welcome back. European refineries patronize Nigeria's crude just as the government is set to boost the country's mushroom business. Details of this and more with Musa Baba Aliu.
A report shows that the European refineries are in high demand of Nigeria's crude oil. India has also been a consistent customer of Nigeria. The report also indicates that buying interest for both spot and term barrels has been robust, especially among refiners in France and the Netherlands. One of such demand is from Egina Deepwater. The $16 billion deepwater project ranked as the biggest oil in the gas investment in Nigeria. Still talking commodities, Nigeria is to enhance production and processing of mushroom for export to commodity markets within and outside the African continent. The global mushroom market accounted for more than $38 billion as at 2018.
Mushroom production is capable of boosting food production and improve foreign exchange earnings for the country. Under adequate management, it is possible to generate billions of dollars yearly from production and export of the commodity.
And the Nigerian Stock Exchange recorded a profit of 0.05% this Thursday.
A coalition of non-governmental organizations led by budget supported by MacArthur Foundation has decried poor funding of education in Nigeria. The group made this known while briefing journalists on the state of funding of education in the last 4 years. Austin Ayebi reports.
Education is the bedrock of development in any human society, explaining why governments of nations across the globe invest heavily in the sector. In Nigeria, where illiteracy level is relatively high, with number of out-of-school going children put at 10.9 million, the need for enhanced budgetary allocation to the sector becomes imperative. This is the concern of a coalition of non-governmental organizations spearheaded by Budget with interest in quality education when briefing the media on the budgetary allocation to the sector in the last 4 years.
Education budget performance is on a decline as funds targeted to the sector are either not assessed or underutilized by the state governments.
The highest allocation the sector has received was 483.1 billion, which is 10.8% of the budget size of 4.49 trillion in 2015.
One of the ways to develop our education system is to develop, fund and implement policies and programs and be transparent and accountable on the utilization of the funds to citizens.
While making case for adequate funding to develop the sector so as to discourage education tourism, they appealed to the 9th Assembly to amend the Universal Basic Education Act 2004 to extend its coverage from junior to secondary education with increased UB fund from 2 to 3% from the federally generated revenue, as this will help to improve learning facilities and infrastructure in schools. In Abuja, I'm Austin Anyebe, NT News.
As part of efforts to ensure improved healthcare delivery in Oyo State, Governor Seyi Makinde has reaffirmed his commitment towards sustaining achievements recorded in the state on polio. He made the promise while receiving Rotary International in his office in Ibadan, Oyo State. Lukman Hassan has the details.
In a bid to ensure that Nigeria is safe from polio, after the last case recorded in 2016, Rotary International presented sensitization materials to Oyo State Ministry of Health to enlighten Nigerians on the need to immunize their children against polio virus. Although Oyo State has not had any reported case of the virus in the last 10 years, Rotary International calls for collaborative efforts with state government to prevent possible spread from surrounding states.
And we want to make sure that as the new government settles in,
that the polio eradication program is on their top agenda.
Then as at when due to health centers to have their routine immunization as it will be stated to them for the different vaccinations.
Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde, while noting that healthcare remains top on his administration's agenda, promised to do the needful at ensuring that the state is polio-free.
I give you the assurance that the leadership of Oyo State were committed to polio eradication, and we're also committed not just to that single disease.
Rotary International has created Nigeria National Polio Plus Committee to ensure that the country is safe from polio. In Ibadan, Lokman Hassan, NTA News.
Conversations are still ongoing about the limiting implications of drug abuse in the country. Dominant themes in these conversations draw from the understanding that the menace is national and so require general collaboration to stem the tide. Onegie Fineface reports.
Clamoring for youth involvement and engagement in governance is gaining greater prominence in conversations about leadership and politics in Nigeria. With the preponderance of addiction and abuse of drugs among youth in the country, there are questions about their capacity to live true to the mantra that the future belongs to them.
Drug abuse and drug addiction not only kills, but it destroys lives. Not just the individual life, but the lives of people around that individual.
Conversations at this conference organized by the National Alliance Against Drug Abuse are designed to engage all stakeholders in stemming the tide towards national development. 18-year-old Abigail Ojeti is one of several young Nigerians determined to lend their voices to advocacies against drug abuse in the country.
We ourselves are the cause of drug abuse because we can't be forced to do what we don't want to do.
While encouraging all Nigerians to get involved in the fight against drug abuse, the federal government continues to take the lead through its agencies to combat the scourge.
The present administration of President Muhammad Buhari, CFR, has however picked up the gauntlet and taken steps to scale up government's response to the drug abuse problem.
A dominant opinion shared in this gathering is that success in the fight against drug abuse is a springboard for fights against crime and criminality in the country. In Abuja, Onengie Fineface, NTA News.
A conference to discuss the suspended Ruga settlement policy of the federal government is being planned by a group that believes in dialogue as means of resolving differences. Now, the group is seeking partnership with the Nigerian Television Authority to bring all those concerned to a round table. Ruth Aguero reports.
The suspended Ruga settlement by the federal government earlier planned to settle migrant pastoral families and to curb open grazing of animals across the country is the reason this group is visiting NTA. They are seeking partnership to use dialogue as a key strategy to further sustain the Ruga settlement through a proposed Ruga conference that will bring together stakeholders to discuss the challenges of the Ruga program and address grey areas.
There is a need to bring together stakeholders under one platform to discuss. Let them tell us what is their grievances towards this. There's going to be a role of engagement for the headers when they come into a community. It's clearly an economic issue.
The Executive Director News, Muhammad Labo, who received the group on behalf of the Director General of the NTA, Yakubu Ibe Muhammad, acknowledged the group's choice of dialogue to pursue their interest in the proposed Ruga policy.
It's unfortunate that the whole policy of government, which of course aims at resolving the conflicts that we are having in the country today, resulting to loss of lives, government wants to address it once and for all for the benefit of everybody. Cattle rearing being part of the value chain of agriculture, should not be left out. If farmers can be supported by government, why wouldn't government support the cattle rearers?
It is the belief of both parties here that dialogue between all concerned parties will be key to resolving differences on the issue. In Abuja, Ruth Aguela, NTA News.
In view of the rising challenges of flood disaster in some parts of the country, the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, has convened a stakeholders workshop on the need to upscale mitigation and intervention. Correspondent Ilyasu Ali Yakubu reports that the workshop has as its theme flood risks mitigation, preparedness and response for 2019 flood response is geared towards enriching stakeholders with information that will assist in mitigating the rising challenge.
The 2019 flood prediction by the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency puts more than 30 states of the Federation in severe risks of flooding. This is due to the predicted high inflow of water from the transboundary of Nigeria occasioned by climate change. Already, flash floods have visited some states, recording a number of casualties. This workshop, organized by NEMA, is in response to this rising challenge, with all the stakeholders in the business of floods mitigation converging on Abuja to find a lasting solution to the perennial flood menace. While recounting his story of flood management in Adamawa State, the Executive Secretary of SEMA, Mohammed Aminu Suleiman, said Adamawa State was severely affected by the 2018 floods disaster, and the 2019 flash floods in the state has already claimed more than 10 lives.
We've been battling with this flood disaster, and